late 13th century, on the edges of a crumbling Byzantine world, a small Turkic beylik rose from the dust of fractured empires. Its leader, Osman I, likely had no idea that his name would echo across centuries. What began as a modest frontier principality in Anatolia would soon become one of the most formidable empires in human history, the Ottoman Empire. Osman's followers were warriors of faith and ambition. They thrived in the chaos of a declining Byzantine empire, seizing lands, forging alliances, and expanding steadily westward. By the time his son Orhan took control, the Ottomans had already captured their first significant city, Bursa, marking the start of their imperial dream. But it wasn't just about conquest. The Ottomans blended pragmatic governance with Islamic principles, absorbing diverse peoples, Turks, Greeks, Slavs, Armenians, Jews, into an empire that straddled civilizations. They were frontier warriors, yes, but also master administrators who adapted Roman, Persian, and Islamic traditions into something uniquely Ottoman. Then came the moment that changed the world. In 1453, Sultan Mehmed II, only 21 years old, launched the boldest siege of his time. The target, Constantinople, the legendary capital of the Byzantine Empire, a city that had stood for over 1,000 years. Fortified walls, a mighty harbor, centuries of imperial prestige, it seemed invincible. But Mehmed was not deterred. With massive cannons forged for the task, a fleet dragged overland, in weeks of relentless assault, the Ottomans breached the walls. Constantinople fell, and with it, the medieval world. The city was reborn as Istanbul, the new jewel of the Islamic world and the heart of the Ottoman realm. From this conquest emerged a superpower that would dominate 3 continents. The Ottomans expanded deep into Eastern Europe, crushed the Mamluks in Egypt, and secured control over the Islamic holy cities. Their empire stretched from the gates of Vienna to the Arabian Peninsula, from Algiers to Baghdad. And then came the Golden Age. Under Suleiman the Magnificent, the empire reached its zenith. Suleiman wasn't just a conqueror, he was a lawgiver, a poet, a reformer. His armies marched into Hungary, besieged Vienna, and ruled the seas. His legal code brought justice to millions, while Istanbul blossomed into a center of culture, architecture, and science. It was a time when the Ottomans were feared in the West, respected in the East, and unmatched in power. But empires rarely stay at their peak. The seeds of decline were already being sown. Great. Here's part 2 of 3 of the documentary script for The Rush, The Rise and Fall of the Ottoman Empire. This section covers the stagnation period, internal struggles, and the growing entanglement in European power politics. By the late 16th century, the Ottoman Empire stood unmatched in territory and prestige. But beneath the surface, the machine that powered the empire was beginning to creak. After the death of Suleiman the Magnificent in 1566, the empire entered a long and complicated period historians call the era of stagnation. Sultans grew weaker. Some were mere boys when they took the throne, puppets in the hands of palace elites, viziers, or the powerful women of the imperial harem. The once mighty Janissary Corps, elite soldiers of the empire, became politically corrupt and resistant to reform. Bureaucracy bloated, tax collection fractured, and local governors began acting like independent kings. But this was no sudden collapse. It was a slow bleed. The empire still expanded at times, but less efficiently. Wars dragged on longer, victories came at higher costs, and Europe was catching up. In the West, the scientific revolution and the rise of strong nation-states like Habsburg, Austria, and Russia meant the Ottomans could no longer dominate through brute force alone. Naval defeats like the Battle of Lepanto in 1571 shattered the myth of Ottoman invincibility at sea. And on land, losses in wars with Persia, Austria, and Poland chipped away at imperial pride. Then came the Treaty of Karlowitz in 1699, a turning point. For the first time, the Ottomans ceded large amounts of European territory to Christian powers. It marked the beginning of the empire's retreat from Europe and signaled that the age of Ottoman dominance was truly over. The 18th and 19th centuries brought more than just military losses. The empire was becoming the sick man of Europe, a term used mockingly by Western diplomats. But that sickness was real. Debt, rebellion, and external manipulation spread like fever. The Balkans, a volatile mix of ethnic and religious communities, became a ticking time bomb. Christian nationalist uprisings, Serbs, Greeks, Bulgarians, were fueled by Western powers eager to carve away pieces of the empire. Russia positioned itself as a protector of Orthodox Christians, while Britain and France played power games around the empire's southern borders. Meanwhile, internal reformers tried to modernize. The Tanzimat reforms of the mid-19th century aimed to create a modern bureaucracy, new schools, railways, and even a constitution. But reform was always too slow or too shallow, and resistance too strong. Then came perhaps the most shocking humiliation, the loss of Egypt. In 1798, Napoleon Bonaparte invaded, and though the Ottomans technically regained control later, it was clear they were no longer the master of their own domains. Soon the Suez Canal would be built, and with it, European interest in controlling the empire's last valuable assets would only intensify. By the dawn of the 20th century, the empire was a shadow of its former self, technically still vast, but practically governed by foreign loans, nationalist uprisings, and constant crisis. It would take only one spark to bring it all crashing down. Here is part 3 of 3, the final act in your documentary script on the rise and fall of the Ottoman Empire. This section covers World War I, the empire's collapse, and its modern legacy. The year is 1914. The world is on fire. Alliances are drawn, empires sharpen their swords, and the Ottomans, despite their decline, are pulled into the deadliest conflict humanity had ever seen. World War I. Led by the Young Turks, a group of military officers and reformist politicians who had seized control of the state, the empire placed its bet on the Central Powers, Germany and Austria, Hungary. It was a desperate gamble by a crumbling giant. The goal? Recover lost glory, regain lost lands, and prove to the world the empire still had fight left in it. Instead, it marked the beginning of the end. From Gallipoli, where Ottoman troops stunned the Allies in a heroic defense, to Arabia, where British-backed rebels and figures like T.E. Lawrence ignited Arab uprisings, the empire bled from within and without. The multi-ethnic machine that once stitched together continents was unraveling at every seam. Then came the ultimate blow. In 1918, the Ottomans surrendered. The empire was broken. Constantinople was occupied. Its provinces, Arabia, the Levant, North Africa, were carved up by the victors in secret deals like Sykes-Picot, redrawing borders that would haunt the Middle East for the next century. But even as the empire collapsed, a new chapter was already beginning. From the ruins rose Mustafa Kemal Ataturk, a former Ottoman general who rejected the empire's fatalism. Rallying Turkish resistance, he led a brutal and brilliant war against occupying forces, both foreign and domestic. By 1923, the Ottoman Empire was officially dead. In its place stood a new nation, the Republic of Turkey. The Sultanate was abolished, the Caliphate dissolved, the Fez was banned, and the alphabet changed. Ataturk wasn't just cutting ties with the empire, he was severing it from the soul of the new state, and yet the Ottoman shadow never truly faded. In the Balkans, borders drawn in blood during centuries of Ottoman rule still spark tension. In the Middle East, arbitrary lines cut by European hands after the empire's fall continue to fuel conflict. Even in modern Turkey, debates over identity, religion, and secularism echo Ottoman legacies. The empire is gone, but the story isn't over. From a small Anatolian principality to one of the greatest empires in world history, the Ottomans shaped continents, faiths, and generations. They built, they ruled, they fell, but their imprint is eternal. This was the rise and fall of the Ottoman Empire, and its legacy still beats in the heart of every city it once touched.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this historical tale, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Trendy Tale for more amazing stories from the past. And be sure to hit the bell icon so you never miss an update. See you in the next video.